What's going on, guys? This is Ethan, the Games Adjuster, and today we are talking about the 1 to 4 player game, Empires of the North. Empires of the North, published by Portal Games, Ignacy Trezwiczek. This is a engine building card game. This is a evolution of Imperial Settlers. The original or 51st State, I think, came before Imperial Settlers. Then Imperial Settlers was kind of more family-friendly theme and everything. They have 51st State Master Set, and now they've got Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North. So they're similar, but not exactly the same. So it's not compatible with the original Imperial Settlers. This came out in 2019 now, so it's been a couple years. Wanted to show you my thoughts on it, show you how it plays real quick, and then come back for those final thoughts. So here we go. Let's go down to the table, and we'll be right back. To begin the game, players are going to choose a clan. In the base game box, there are 6 total clans. I've ranked them up top from easiest to hardest. This one's at the far right is ranked level 8. For example, this one here is actually the easiest one in the box. We'll use this as our playthrough example here for this demonstration. You'll also be putting out the 3 basic field cards that come with your deck. The basic ones here do say basic on the top left and have this little checkered pattern here. You'll collect the appropriate resources from those basic cards as indicated. So we've got 2 stone, 2 wood, and a fish. Each player will also get 5 workers, 2 of the action tokens in the color they select. There are 4 colors in the box: red, green, yellow, and blue. It doesn't matter which one you choose, you just agree on what color you're going to be. You'll take the markers of those colors. You'll put your score marker on the score track at 0, and then you will also take the 2 boats that come with your specific clan. For example, these are the 2 for this clan. One of the clans in the base game box actually starts with 3 of those boats. Also, players are going to randomly set out these tiles here. These are action tiles that we'll be referencing here in a little bit. And you can play the game solo. I'm not doing a solo demonstration here. I'm just going to show you kind of how the game works. Assuming maybe there was 2 or 3 or however many players, it doesn't really change the setup. Over here, this tray does actually come with the game. It's very nice for breaking up all the resources. And then we also have this island board. So there's a nearby island on the left, the distant islands on the right. We will shuffle those, flip out 2 each. You'll each also draw a hand of 5 cards, and you'll select 3 of them from those hands. So I've already gone ahead and done that. These are the 3 I selected. And then you are ready to begin. Randomly choose a first player, and you'll begin playing the game. Each player will also get one of these game reference cards that has the actions overview here, and then round overview here. All right, so let's talk about a round. To begin the game, you're going to take a lookout phase. So simultaneously, players are going to draw 4 cards from their deck, then spend 1 worker. And the idea in this game when you spend workers is rather than putting them back in supply, you'll actually just put them on the spent workers tile that matches your color. So you'll draw 4 from your deck, then you will choose the ones that you want to keep, spending 1 worker for each, and then you will discard the remainder. So let's say I want to go ahead and just keep, for simplicity's sake, let's do this one here, these 2. So these 2 I'm going to discard, and then I'll spend 2 of my workers here to add these to my hand, and now I have a starting hand of 5 cards. Okay, after you've done that, if you had any storage effects, I don't have any here, but some of these cards will have storage effects. You will gain those benefits, and then you'll begin taking actions. And this is where most of the game is going to take place. So there are a few action tiles here, and we'll talk through those first, and then outside of that, there are some other actions you can take. So one of the actions you can do when you want to do with these middle ones is you'll use one of your tokens here and put it on any spot. There can be any number of players on a spot. The spot does not have to be empty. You can just place it there. So let's talk with, we'll start with the harvest and we'll work our way around. So harvest here says gain goods from one of your fields. These cards here are fields with the pumpkin icon, and you can gain the goods from one of them. So I might say, you know what, I really like the fish. I only have 1 of those. I'm going to get another fish. Boom. And that's my turn. And the next player will take their turn. You'll continue taking turns until you pass. Once you pass, you are out of the round, but other players can continue on. So let's talk through the rest of them here. At sail, you can put 1 of your boats on the expedition board. When you place a boat on the expedition board, you will need to choose at this moment whether you would like to also add a fish to your boat, which will allow you to visit the distant islands here. You can see at the very top, kind of, there's a little fish there. Otherwise, if you don't spend a fish, you can always go to the nearby islands. In addition to the fish making the choice to distant islands, and you don't have to make that choice when it's all said and done, it just gives you the opportunity to go. You can also spend a raise token, which is one of these axes. We don't start with one here in this clan, but if you had one of these, you could also put that on your boat. And this will give you the option to potentially conquer one of these islands if that's something you wanted to do. All right, and we'll kind of circle back to what this is later. So let's just leave that as it is here. Another thing you can do is populate. On the populate action, you can add one worker from the supply to your personal supply. So notice I've got these 3 workers left over from earlier. I've added a 4th one. The 2 that remain on the spent workers will stay there until the end of the round, but I will get them back. So maybe next round I'll have 6 workers. Here at the construct action, you can build a card for free that requires certain building materials. So for example, this card here says I need to spend wood to build it, 1 wood. But if I took the construct action, I wouldn't need to spend my wood. I can just play the card and put that in my tableau here. All right. And then finally, the last action is explore, which simply allows you to draw a card. Now, I've been moving the 1 token around on this board. You actually have 2 tokens, and they can only be used twice each. So once you place it down, you take your action like normal, and it goes around. And if you would like to take another action on this board, you can spend 1 food, or this tomato meeple here, not meeple, but tomato resource. You can move it 1 space left or right, either one of them, and flip it over to show that it has been used 2 times. This round cannot be used again 2 times. And you can do that with each of them. So had I had 2 tomatoes, I could spend those to do those movements and take 4 total actions here. If I don't have the tomatoes to spend, I cannot do that. Okay, so that's one thing you can do there as well. We'll take those off just to clear it out here. Some of the other actions you'll do are going to be based on these cards. So we built this naval battle card earlier, and it says your action, spend 2 workers to gain a raise token and a fish. How fortuitous. So we could spend that, and anytime you spend a card, you will tap it or exhaust it in the game. And then you will spend your 2 workers, and you will gain the fish and the raise token. So let's pretend we had done that before we went sailing, and then we went sailing, and now we're all square as far as what we've done on the board so far. All right, so that's another thing you can do is any of these action cards throughout the game, you will gain several more of these. Like this one here, Crossroads, says spend 1 wood to gain a point. Anytime you gain a point in the game, you will track that on the score track up top. Additionally, you may play 1 boost from your hand. So what are boost? You'll notice this card here, as it says populate to play. This is a boost card. So when I took the populate action, let's say it had gone around and come back to me, once I declared that I was taking that action, before I resolve the action, I can play a boost card that has that matching title, so populate. This one here says instant, unexhaust 1 copy of this card and draw a new card. So if I had a copy card, I could unexhaust it and then draw a new one. There are several more boost cards in the stack here. So this is just a regular constructing building card, but some like, let's see, explore to build. I'm sorry, well, that's not really a boost, but explore to play, that would be a boost. Explore to build, that would be something you could add on to your fields. Populate to play, there you go. So there's a bunch of these cards here that you will get in your deck. Every deck is different and will have a huge variety of cards there and different effects. Beyond that, you could also just regularly build. So if I wanted to play maybe, let's say, this card here, Crossroads, I could spend 1 stone, put the stone back in the supply. Regular resources are spent like normal, go back to supply, and then I would build that card. I would put it down, but then I have a new action, spend a wood to gain a point. Additionally, you may play 1 boost from your hand. Very cool. What else here? After you've done that, you could also, if you had a raise token still in front of you, this is basically the only kind of player interaction other than maybe taking something someone wants in the exploration phase here, or expedition phase rather. But if you had a raise token, you could spend your token, put it back in the supply, and then you could tap someone else's card in their tableau that has an action. So if someone had spent that on me, they might make me tap this before I wanted to use it, and therefore it is inaccessible until I can find a way to untap it. All cards will untap at the end of the round, or unexhaust. All right, and so the only other card here that I want to talk about is these field cards. So field cards do not have a resource cost. They will tell you how they can be built. This one says populate to build it. So if I wanted to build this card, I could play it into my tableau here. And immediately, this is the exception to the other rules. These other cards, when you build them, you don't get to use them until you take their action and spend their appropriate resources. But a field card will give you the resource there. So if I spent this, I could get 1 tomato immediately. Now, uniquely, this is also a feature card. So it has the regular food icon here, like this normal field might have. But you'll notice it's got this slash here. So that means I could add this neighborhood ice cream shop to another card and then place it like this. So now anytime I go to the marble mound, I will get the 2 stone and the tomato. So maybe next harvest I would do that. All right. And that's pretty much all the basic actions. So once you have all taken your actions and everyone has passed, you will move on into the expedition phase. So as players place these ships out here, and we'll kind of zoom in so you can see a little bit more about what's going on with these ships. Basically, as players place ships here, they're lining up to start exploring some of these different islands. And so these islands will offer the players some opportunity to get new actions, perhaps in their tableau, or immediate benefits when they pillage them. So in player order, and let's pretend there had been some other ships maybe, the top ship will start by exploring one of the islands. I have placed a raise token and a fish token, so my options are fully open. Whether I use them or not, raise tokens are used to conquer, and the fish tokens allow me to go to the distant islands. Whether I use them or not, they are still spent. However, now I can choose what I'm going to take. So I might just pillage any one of these cards, and again, the fish allows me to access these. Otherwise, if I had not brought any resources, I can only go to these. And when you pillage a card, you will immediately take its benefits. So pillage says gain 2 stone and 1 point. However, if I wanted to, I could just conquer this, and it's a Flying Dutchman here. Building bonus once you conquer it is you get a ship token here that can be used, and then you also get a sheep and a stone. Okay, so you have a choice there. Do you want the immediate benefits, or do you want to add it to your tableau and do some other actions? So for example, this here, Fire Island, says once you gain it with a conquer action, you could spend a wood to sail and place another ship out there rather than having to rely on the board here. Okay, so these are very cool. Once everybody has done that, we'll resolve all of those and we'll move on to the next phase. The next phase is very simply the cleanup phase. All players will retrieve their workers from their cards there. So I would take all 4 of these workers back and add them to my supply. We would discard all the remaining islands on this board here and refresh those with new islands to see on the expedition. And then we would pass the first player marker to the left, and we'll see if the game ends. Once a player has arrived at 25 points, that will trigger the end of the game. Once the end of the game is triggered, we will finish out the current round, and then we will calculate our final scores. The final score will be 1 point for each card within your empire, including your basic fields, your field upgrades, and your conquered islands. You will also get 1 point for every 2 resources you have remaining in your supply, and you will add 1 point for every gold remaining in your supply. And that point, the player with the most victory points is the winner. In case of a tie, the player with the most locations in their empire wins. If they're still tied, the player with the most workers. And if they're still tied, whoever has most cards left in hand. After that, any tied players are just going to share the victory. I should also mention that gold is a wild resource. So you'll notice the gold here. There are some ways that you can get the gold, and that can be substituted for anything else. However, if something were to require gold, it does not work in reverse. So if I needed a food to maybe move one of these tokens, I could spend the gold. But if I needed the gold, I could not spend the food. Okay? And so that's basically the game. Okay, let's briefly talk storage of Empires of the North. Actually, very easy. So there are 6 card wells here, and there are 6 decks in the game. So I just have each of the 6 factions in their own card well with their ships on top. Over here on the top left, there are the extra ships. There are some numbered tokens. I didn't show those in the overview, but these are so if you get a ton of ships in there, you can number which one was which. There are also some 5 times multipliers for the resources. I haven't really run out of resources yet, but if you get a lot, you can use these. And then I have the nearby and distant islands in the corner with the round overview cards on top. All of the score markers, action tokens, and spent worker tiles are bagged separately for each player color. I've just put those over the 4 bottom wells here. The action tiles here slot right into that spot. The first player token right there. And then you have just the boards and this nice resource tray. Love this. Great job, Portal. We'll be talking about that in the production later, but love that they have included this into the game. It makes playing the game so much simpler and easier to set up. After that, I usually just throw the tiles here with the rule book, of course, and there you go. That's how you set it up. So let's go up for those final thoughts. Okay, there you go. So let's talk about it. We'll start with the theme. Some of the factions are kind of thematic. I like that because they're different and kind of asymmetric a little bit, that like the banking faction is really good at banking, and then the pillaging faction really good at pillaging. So in that sense, it's very thematic. The mechanisms aren't as much so, right? Like you're just taking actions. You know, you build, yeah, you get to spend resources to build cards, and the boosting doesn't totally thematically make sense, but I don't think you're playing this game for the theme. I think you're playing this game if you like engine building card games, which is effectively what this is. So I think the theme is decent. I'm not going to say it's amazing. As far as the production goes, it's awesome. They do a great job with the insert. Everything has its place. There are 4 expansions as of now that introduce two factions per expansion. So I'm pretty sure you could fit all of that in here with all the how deep the card wells are. They won't each have their own well, so you'll need to kind of double up on some. It'll be kind of tight, but I think you can do it. I love that the resource trays come in the game like that, and it's very easy to just plop it on the table, set it up and play. Probably vertical storing like this, not the way to go. You probably want to go horizontal, so I'll check the mess here in a little bit, but I don't think it's been that bad. I normally store this game vertically, and I've never had a problem with it like being a mess when I open the box. So good engineering on their end. As far as the artwork and everything, it's good, it's cute. There's different factions, they're fun. Love that. And yeah, overall, just a pretty good production. The rules, very good. On the box, they've got Rodney Smith, Watch It Played, the king of a walkthrough. So if you looking for that as a new gamer, even you can grab the box off the shelf and see that. I think that's a great tag to have on your game because he's the best. So seeing that is a reassurance for the customer to know that, hey, I have the rule book. I'm sure it's well written, but I'm going to have some backup here with some online tutorials and some from very well regarded content creators. So that's good. And then learning it on your own. Even I read from the rule book. It's pretty wordy. It kind of explains some key terms at the beginning, and then it walks you through what the phases are, and then it gives you more details on the actual phases. So I like that cadence. I don't think it's or that order. I don't think I would have done it any different. I think it's effective, and it's not a long rule book. I did not. It's kind of like a papery rule book. Maybe that's a production thing, but I thought it was kind of weird. It's kind of grainy and papery, so didn't like that necessarily. I didn't really see a rule book like that, but it didn't tear or anything, so I guess it's fine. But just something I thought I'd point out. They do have action reference cards that are accessible to everyone. I think the hard part about the game at times can be because they're asymmetric and different, then it's hard for you to maybe teach the other players everything that's going on with their faction. Because something that I have unique to me, although they're in the same kind of mechanisms of the game, they are a little different. There's little nuances and things like that that may get lost on players that are dealing with a new faction or maybe even one that you, as the teacher of the game, have not played. So just be aware of that. It's not to the extreme, like let's say a really asymmetrical game like Root, where it's a totally different turn structure, it's not that extreme. It's just little cards and little things that you might need to walk them through. But again, it's not hard. The game does a great job of kind of explaining some of those things. As far as the gameplay goes, it's quick, it's snappy. I like it best at 2 players because of that quickness. You can just play your cards, draw your cards, go, 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 and then boom, next phase. Very, very snappy. I like that. I like, again, because you have the different factions, you kind of get a little bit of a different game every time you play. As far as, what is the thing that my faction is good at? Do I need to really focus on sailing and going to the different islands and getting a bunch of those? Do I need to just keep comboing different cards and tapping them and untapping them and then getting the resources and then moving my action token again to do a boost and then getting another untap? All of that combos together and each faction feels balanced. I like that they're scaled in difficulty level from easy to difficult. And so if you are playing with a new player, you can kind of have that handicap self-imposed and play with the harder faction and still feel like you're both gaining points at a steady rate and both doing well. So really like that. I wouldn't say it's necessarily anything super unique. So again, this is kind of an evolution of a previous system where instead of a shared deck of cards like you would have like in 51st State or Imperial Settlers, you've got your own deck of cards. That does help to expedite the setup time and everything, but I'm not sure like once you play those factions over and over, if you're going to find, even though there are a lot of factions, there's 6 in the box plus 8 more, so 14, and then there's like a legacy solo thing maybe coming out later. But unless you're playing a different faction, you're not really going to have a different experience. So, if I'm playing the same faction over and over again, I'm kind of playing the same game, and I maybe can get pigeonholed into doing a certain style of gameplay, because if I try to deviate from that, then I'm not going to do as well, because that's just how my faction is made. Which, that's what you get with variable player powers and that kind of thing. You kind of are pushed in a certain direction, and it's not a sandbox game. It's not intending to be. So I just mentioned that so you know that. Just keep that in mind as gameplay goes. The time, like I said, it's snappy, it's quick. I haven't ever played it at 4. I've only played it at 2 and 3. I never tried the solo either, but I would say I like it at 2. It's okay at 3. It's pretty good still, but 2 I think is best because it's just me and my opponent going back and forth and just trying to get as quick as points as we can and most points that we can. The variety, touched on it already. It's decent. It's got 6 factions. If you play them once each, I mean, not even once each. It's like if you play them, you know what kind of style of game you're going to have to play to do well. So keep that in mind. You can get the expansions. They're like 25 to 30, maybe even 20 a piece, depending on where you get them. So, all in, if you got all of them, let's say 25 average, that's $100 extra for 4 factions plus the base game. So for $150, you can get, effectively 14 decks of cards and, different variety in the way you play. So that in itself is a decent amount of variety. The 6 factions here, decent amount. Just again, remember that you're playing to your faction style, and that's what the game is designed to do. It's designed to kind of give you a push towards this certain direction, and if you follow that direction, you're going to do pretty well. You can deviate some, but I wouldn't do it too much because that's not the way your faction is designed. So you kind of have to figure that out. But there you go. Yeah, overall, I think it's a really, really solid card game. I would give it an 8 out of 10 on this one. I do have a few invisibility card games I like a little better, but this one's really solid. Probably not one I'm going to be investing in for the expansion factions. I really liked it. My spouse not so much. So unfortunately, but if I was to invest in it, if I had someone reliable I could play it with, I would probably get all of them because I do think it's a really, really solid game. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Imperial Settlers Empires of the North. If you played the game, let me know what your thoughts were. If you played the expansions, let me know which ones you think are the best. If you haven't played this, but you think you might have played something similar, let me know about that as well. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one.